I had those questions and I thought, you know what, I need someone to read this and just give me some very real feedback. And I knew as well that none of my friends could ever give me a real feedback because whatever they would read, if they were my friends, they were going to be biased. So I needed a total stranger. And I'm going to tell you and to your all your audience that when you have this intention, the universe will provide. Because the moment I knew that I needed to have an opinion, I asked a colleague, "Do you know an author?" She said, "I happen to. I'll put you in contact." And that's how I came across my mentor. And I've got to tell you that my book would not be my book if it weren't because I not met Jack Watts. Jack wrote a best-selling memoir in 2010. He's written about 20 books after that. And he agreed to read my first draft. And after he agreed to read that first draft, he came back, had some feedback, had some criticism, had some questions. And then I sent him my second and third chapter. And with that feedback, he said, you know what? This is what I would do, and this is why I would do it. I'm going to have you rewrite it. I rewrote my first chapter. It took me, a lot of effort, but I did it. And when he read that new version, he said, if you accept criticism and work this well, I am going to help you write the whole book.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's amazing what a coach can do, isn't it?
Yes. And he coached me through the whole thing. He kept me accountable. He would check in with me. He'd say, Deb, you've written already halfway through. You cannot stop now. And he held my hand through the whole process. So most people, I would say, I have friends that are, on an endeavor to write a book, and it's taken them a long time. It took me pretty much 12 months from writing to publishing.
Wow, which is surprisingly fast. But
that was fast. And it would have been faster had it not been for the coronavirus.
It would have been faster because
I would have finished it sooner, but I had the kids back. All of a sudden, they all returned. What I thought was the empty space that I was going to have was not. They prowled around me like caged tigers wanting to be fed. And so that was exhausting, but I got it done.
Dear God, I love it.
Yes.
So I'm so proud of you for getting this done in 12 months. I mean, that's fast enough for me. It's clear, however, in your book that you are very much a type A personality. You plan everything and you're very honest about this in your book. So well done. So I want to go ahead and talk about some of these wonderful topics that you've written. I learned so much about you as I was reading this book, and it's been, it was not easy, but it was you had to stop and reflect a lot on it. And
I have to tell you, I didn't want to write about myself. That was one of my original things. I wanted to put the information that I thought would be helpful out there, but I really didn't want to write about myself. And my mentor, that was the big push. You've got to write about yourself. Because
why didn't you want to write about yourself? Why specifically did you think that was?
Well, there's a lot of personal stuff in there, but it never occurred to me that it would be important. And one of the things, that you'll notice in the book is there's a bit of my ancestry. And I asked him, well, why would that be important? And he said, why are the Irish so lyrical? Why are they so musical? And he says, it's in our DNA because, we were oppressed for so many years, centuries, and the only way we could express it was through alcoholism and the arts. So that's important to my heritage. This is Jack. In your case, why were you so resilient? Why were you so tenacious? Well, maybe it has to do with your heritage. And that comes through your DNA. So I wrote a lot of, there was more than I expected to ever write, but the book flowed. So that was that.
It flows beautifully. And how you tie it together is so interesting. It's part like genetic history with your family, part memoir, and it's very vulnerable. You talk about your father's background being a Hakka woman.
Yes, a Hakka.
So, and I love how you were writing this.
Ooh, you froze up, Joe.
Oh, I'm freezing?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm freezing here.
Yes.
But it was interesting because you do talk, there's a subtext throughout this book where genetics kind of play a story from both how you have your ancestry to nature versus nurture with your husband battling his addictions and alcoholism. What did that, how have, I'm sure as a mother that you had some serious thoughts about that as you were trying to raise your sons and grieve at the same time. What do you hope people take away as a spouse or a parent to someone who has these issues? What do you think? Do you believe it's genetic, or do you believe that you can overcome it?
Absolutely. I believe that you have certain genetic predispositions. For example, in my family, we've got cancer. It's a stamp. It's my on my grandmother's side. She and all her siblings, which are about 5 or 6, died of cancer in the reproductive organs mostly. So we know, my mother and we have grown up with that specter. So therefore that predetermines in a certain way, we eat really healthy. We do things that we know would not trigger the disease. Same way with my husband's addiction. There is a genetic legacy in that family regarding addiction, especially alcoholism. So therefore my role as a mother is to convey these legacies, these genetic legacies to my children. Until I say, you know what, you're half your dad. You have these predispositions. Therefore, you must be more vigilant about addictive behavior, be that in your, gambling, medical, painkillers, your use of painkillers, you have to be very mindful. Alcoholism for sure. So yes, it does. I bring it into bearing, and I'm very honest with my children from when they were little. This is in your blood. Mom has cancer and diabetes. Dad has addiction.
So being that forthright with your kids has been something that, do you think, has helped them in mitigating their behaviors?
I think they're aware of it. It's hard to mitigate when you're 18 and 21 in college, but they are aware of it, and we talk about ways to mitigate it, and we talk of ways to recognize it. That's all I can really do as a parent. You inform them, you give them the best information that you can, and then you pray and you hope that something sinks.
There were so many moments in this book that I absolutely loved, but one of the things that kept resounding for me as I was reading it was early in the book, you're talking about how everything just fell apart so quickly. You and your husband have been battling addiction for years, and then his health just deteriorated over 1 month, and it just really took this toll that no one could really. I mean, reading your book, I was like, I became emotionally numb. It was emotionally exhausting. That's a compliment, by the way. So if you take it that such, it made a reaction. But I loved how you would pray, "Dear God, please just give me only what I can handle today." And that just resonated so deeply. How did you overcome so much? Did you ever feel like you were given more than you couldn't handle that day? I mean, I know that answer, but talk about it.
One of the things that has been, as a type A is a planner. I like to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And when something like this happens to you, you realize that there is no planning. You cannot plan a single thing. And I think the important takeaway on that aspect is that, do what you can that you think you ought to do for the future, but live your moment today, because the future really does not exist and the past already happened. But what matters is what you're doing today. Mm-hmm. So I try to think about the future. There are certain things that are, a responsible person would do, but then I don't worry about it too much. I'm not beheld. And that was one of the big lessons for me as a type A. Now I don't plan so much. I live much more loosely, and well, if it happens, it happens. It is what it is. Whatever. Depends how it's going to come.
It's so, in today's society, as I've had my nonprofit going, we've had kids that have been dealing with alcoholism and drug abuse at such a young age. And it's so easy for them fall into it these days. And you would think that it's, for so long, people think it's just something that happens to another class. It doesn't happen in our backyard. But you're very clear that your husband's addiction to painkillers was because he trusted his doctors, like as if, I love how you worded it, it was a silver bullet, that it was going to protect him because he believed that the doctors were giving him what they thought was right. But you said in your book, you came to find out that internists and doctors very rarely actually have any training in addiction.
They still don't. Hold 1 second. Let me turn on the light. As an example, my older son had knee surgery, and he was operated on by some of the best surgeons in that specialty in the world in New York. He's got great insurance. And, you know, they didn't ever ask us, is there a history of addiction in this family? Check. They didn't ask if he had any addictive, you know, issues, which he could have had at 21, right? Mm-hmm. And they went and the doctor prescribed him, much to my surprise. You know, I went to CVS, I picked up the prescription in the bag, and as a good mom, I'm unloading it. I'm, you know, checking how much he needs to take. And I see a bottle for 28 pills of Percocet.
28 pills.
Yep.
Okay.
Percocet. Highly addictive.
Very.
Yes.
I've had it once in my life, and thank God I'm allergic to it.
2 years ago. I mean, you know, back when all of this was happening, the opioid crisis in the US had not exploded. So, you know, you didn't know as much. But in this day and age where we know, it's still happening. So
why do you think people aren't talking about it as much? Why do you think people aren't? I love how you, I mean, it is an opioid crisis. It's an actual social problem. And it's such a taboo thing to talk about, but until we talk about it, we can't actually address it. So why do you feel it's something that people aren't talking about, especially where we live in South Florida, in Boca? It's a very, your image is everything.
Because I think that it's become normal to numb yourself. And that's one of the things that people found very surprising when when my husband had passed away. They were like, what are you on? I'm like, what am I on as what? No, what are you taking for the grief? I'm like, I'm not taking anything. I've got to push through this. I've got to experience it. And I don't know if it's something that's very normal. You know, I'm American, but I've only lived here since I was 21. And I don't know if that's something that's a cultural norm, where you're feeling depressed, take a pill. You're feeling anxious, take a pill. You're feeling sad, take a pill. Mm-hmm. It's not the way I was raised. You know, pills are your last resort. So
and interesting,
that's why.
In Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that you say that you're a Chinese. How do you say in your book, and I'm going to ruin it, but Chinese Hispanic American, is that what you say?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember.
It's in chapter like 1 or 2. I remember that, but you talk about it, and it was
a cultural mutt.
A multicultural mutt. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So in Venezuela, do they grieve differently?
Oh, well, it's very emotional. I mean, Latins cry, and you know, it's very, you wear your emotions on your sleeves. Basically, everybody knows you're upset, or everybody will know that you're unhappy, and there's a lot of social support. You know, people are constantly coming by, seeing how you're doing. So, I can't speak much more than that. I just can tell you that I believe that people don't talk about the painkillers because maybe it's a sign of weakness that you're taking them. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you succumb to the addiction, it's a further sign of weakness. I don't know. I don't think we talk about it enough, which was one of the reasons why my mentor, Jack, really encouraged me to talk about this and make it part of the book. Mm-hmm.
I have been wanting to have this talk with you
Since you were reading it.
Yeah, and I've been moving and reading this as I wanted some light reading before bed. This is not the book to read, by the way. That's what you're gonna do. But
Yeah.
but it makes you reflect and actually think of what's going on. I'm sorry, that's not my phone, but we are going to deny that. There you go. So you just have so many wonderful moments here, and in this book, it's clear you are writing to Randy, your late husband, trying to process your feelings and how you go about life. And it was so sudden. So, and it's so unfair. It's when you get to the chapters where you're talking about how your husband, Randy, passed away because of heart disease, which no one had tested for, and a stent could have been everything to save his life. But then you would still have the shadow of addiction. And you actually came to the conclusion that God found this to be the most merciful way of taking him.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the best way for you and your family. Wow. Wow. I, how do you share that with your kids? Did you talk to them about this? Did you talk to your family about it? It's such a powerful lesson.
The kids knew that there was addiction. Honestly, I don't know if I've shared that with them this whole way to, they probably not actually. I mean, I've given them the book, but I haven't asked them to read it. I just say at your time, when it's your time. They are very well aware of the heart disease and they're aware of the addiction part. And what I have said is, thankfully, we didn't lose daddy that way with an overdose. This was a very merciful death. And I always talk about if I had to die, I would like to die like my husband died. I'm very open about death. I'm totally okay with it. I think there's another world on the other side, and I can hardly wait to go there.
It's so interesting how you talk about how he dies, and it's I will let you talk about it because it's going to make me like choke up and cry. And that I'm not pretty when that happens, so we ain't going to let the video camera work on me that way. But how you were talking about he fell and he gashed was it his arm that he
No,
gashed?
he gashed his eyebrow. It was a tiny but deep gash. And he didn't want to go to the hospital. I'm like, you need to get stitches on that. He's like, I'm fine. I'm like, no. You've got to go to the hospital for that. And because of that, then when they did all the tests, they realized that he was having kidney failure at that point, and then soon after liver failure. And so what was a little gash ended up being a 16-day stay at the hospital.
And test after test
after test, because they wanted to understand what had caused the kidney failure. At the end of the day, there was no conclusion, no real conclusion. He's discharged. They had found some fungus in his lungs. They thought that might have been the cause. So we were exploring that avenue. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, he had a heart attack. And he died in his sleep, but it was a heart infarction. And so what was explained to me is usually when you have kidney failures, it can come from your lung or from your heart, but it really is all connected. And in his case, they didn't fully explore the heart part and focused more on the lungs.
So Randy was a photographer that went around traveling around the world, taking amazing pictures. It's funny how opposites attract, because you are very type A, and you read this book and you can tell that he is definitely not type A. And no. I've never got the chance to meet him, but it's very clear. So you married Randy, from what it appears, not so much with your parents' favor, but you were determined, you felt he was the love of your life. And you had this love story you wanted to create, and it did not go according to plan. At one point in the book, you talk about you were raised Catholic and divorce was not an option whatsoever. But the addictions and the pills, you kept finding pills hidden in different places. And at some point you went to an attorney, you wanted to have a post-nuptial agreement, almost like this was a transaction, your marriage was a transaction. How did you how did you work that? How did you wrap your mind around having an arrangement for a marriage versus a sacrament?
Well, I didn't want to break the sacrament, but at one point, the deacon at the church had said, "You need to leave him." And I was like, "Well, you're supposed to keep us together. You know, you're Catholic, I'm Catholic, we're all Catholic. We need to be together. And you're telling me that I have to leave him." So that was in my mind, that the actual, deacon of the church had said that I had to divorce. And I
Mm.
still didn't feel right, but it was seemingly the only solution. So as this is transpiring, and you have to remember, at the end of the day, this is a book about love, because we deeply loved each other throughout the trials and tribulations that we both went through. So he wanted, obviously, to stay married. I sort of wanted to in that moment. There were the kids to consider. And I really wanted it all to work out. I just wanted our lives to work out. So the postnuptial was my idea of having peace of mind while we worked through our marriage.
It
Because
just that exit plan if needed.
if I needed an exit plan, and the exit plan would only happen if he reneged on his end of the bargain, which meant, it held him accountable. So to his credit, he did it, and he signed everything over to me, our business, our finances, everything, because he believed that we were going to beat it. So
You have this one quote here, I'm trying to find it. It's about your love story. And I'm going to read this. So he passed away. What date was he passed away?
December 31st. So
Yeah.
it's a tough,
Mm-hmm.
every year it's a tough.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So you started a brand new year already down, like struggled.
Yes.
I
Yes.
get that. So I'll come back to that in a second, but this is one of the letters that you wrote in February 18th, which just got me, because it's you have a very clearly troubled but loving marriage, and you're standing beside him through thick and thin, and it's very, very clear through the entire book. But this is a month and a half after he passes away, and you write February 18th, dear Randy, I had to deal with blue chip issues all over again. I am also looking into selling the Porsche. I feel so sad to have to let go of the two things that you so loved, but I am clearly unable to keep them. There's a possibility of a malpractice suit. If we win, the money will take care of much, but it also opens up the possibility that you could have been saved, and none of this would have had to end this way. The boys would have a father, and we would be together. I don't know if I should proceed. This could be very painful. I keep going back to us and our love story. That is beautiful. I read that last line like 15 times before I could even go on to the next paragraph.
Mhm.
It's starting to show that going through the process of grief, you're starting to get into this part of acceptance and the actions of having to get rid of belongings that were so valued and priceless. And it's changing your identity as you're doing it. And you're holding on still to your story, your narrative, to the man that you fell in love with before everything was taken away. It was so powerful. Do you still go back to your love story?
Occasionally I do, but it's not the same as in that period. Um, I always feel comfort in knowing that I experienced it. One of the things that one of my friends has always told me, says, Deb, at least you know what it feels like. A lot of people don't ever experience that. So at this point, I'm very much at peace with what has happened. Um, I'm actually, I think I've grown tremendously as a person on so many levels because of what happened. I don't think I would be the person that I am today had I not been through such a difficult time in my life. I look at everything like it's not a big deal because I've already been through the big deal.
When you talk about going through hell and back, you've actually got the roadmap now. Like it's this
Yes.
is
Like,
it's
what's
incredible.
your worst nightmare? My youngest son once asked me, Mom, when they're 6 or 7 years old, they always want to put things in relative terms. So he's like, Mom, what would be worse? Your worst nightmare or getting stabbed by a robber in a dark alley? And I'm like, well, I've already been through my worst nightmares. So, you know, been there, done that.
So it's oh my God, that month that he was in the hospital going through everything, you learned that it made me think about people who have loved ones that are in like a coma or they can't actually visit them, especially with what we're going through right now, and how you are very clearly being worn down day after day after
Yeah.
day. And you had already been beaten up and trying to keep a family together, trying to wrap your mind around pulling your haka strength to actually, and your resolve to be resilient, everything that goes with your story. But you at first started by questioning everything, all the doctors, the entire routine, but then the routine becomes monotonous and it becomes like you become dull and numb to it after a point in time. Do you think that because there was no break in that monotony, that it was part of the reason no one thought to ask about the other questions because you just didn't have the energy to do so?
Yeah, there comes a point where I was really so worn down, and it was like I was on Team Randy, but no one was on Team Debbie, you know? So normally I would have been much sharper in, trying to come up with questions to get answers, but I was really worn down towards the end. Whenever you have a loved one in a health crisis, there's the practical aspect of it, of your life being upended and how do you get through the day. But then there's the very emotional side of it, of not knowing what you're dealing with. You don't have answers, you don't have a plan, you just, your life is in limbo. And that wears, especially the type A's like me, that wears you down. So I was depleted. I thought I had nothing left, and then he passed away. So if I was zero, I was now going into negative territory.
It was that part was very hard for me to read personally because I could relate in a way I'm so I wish I couldn't. But my ex had a heart attack on our 4-year anniversary, and he was 39 years old. And suddenly I'm having to address all of these questions that I didn't think I'd have to address for
Age.
decades. Right?
Yes.
You don't think to talk about these things. What happens with your Porsche? What happens with our house, with your savings account, with what do you do at that point? And it is so scary because when they pass away, I remember thinking that when Jason died, he wouldn't know any different. I would be the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, that team Debbie, that the person that's there surviving. And you also say in your book, like, you're great in a crisis. I am as well. Like, I can totally relate to what you were saying, like that, being great in a crisis. But when that crisis is over, I'm done. There's nothing left. I remember sitting on my floor in my apartment, staring at the wall for 8 hours. No sound, no music, no one there. I could not even pick up my phone to ask for help. And here you had to do this and explain it to your kids. Damn.
Yes, I didn't have a break for a long time of being alone, which is what I would have needed. But once they returned to school, then it was just me and the baby, and I did find a lot of comfort in him.
In the
So
baby.
in the baby, yes.
It's
So
very true. Your
mhm.
3 sons are something they actually, it sounds like they tried making like holidays and your birthday special as things went on that year.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
it's really sweet to see that.
yes.
So you don't come out of these things the same. And I didn't realize how much I needed to read this. I mean, you told me what it was going to be about. You told me it was going to be really good for people who were dealing with addiction and surviving like grief or whatever, but I did not realize how much I would get out of it. So I really do recommend if anybody wants to get this book, it's on Amazon. I'll put the link in a minute. But it's so well written. It is very, very raw. Would that be a good way to describe it in your words, Miss Taipei?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say what it is.
It's very raw. Like you leave this book feeling every emotion that you describe.
Uh-huh.
It's and it's because you walk everyone through the events in such a clear
I do intend, my original intention really was, I mean, obviously a group, but the original intention really wasn't for the bereaved. It was for the community that would surround the bereaved so that you could understand what someone is really feeling. Because no one is really, even my best friends who read the book and who were with me were like, wow, Deb, we didn't know it was like that. So I'm trying to give the reader a window into what it's like, so that if you had a friend, if you had a sister or a brother, you could understand what they're going through. So that was the original intention. That being said, those that have encountered addiction in their relationships have told me that they've gotten a lot out of it. It's helped them understand or not feel alone, or that they're not the only ones experiencing what they're experiencing. And then, much to my surprise, those that are bereaved, even 6 years later, someone that was widowed 6 years ago, a man of great faith, who actually was the one that recommended the book that I mentioned in my book. He read it and he said, thank you for writing this. It's changed my life. So, the book is accomplishing, I think, what I wanted it to, and more than I ever expected.
You take us through the hardest point in your life. And anyone who reads it, you're going to feel that. But the thing that is so unique about it is you share how you return to joy, how you heal. And it's apparent, like I have notes in here saying, oh, I can see glimmers of hope starting in this area. I can see coming to acceptance in that area. And you start to heal vicariously by reading your book, and you come to terms with it. And that is something that I can't say enough about. I don't know, I had not read a book like this before for that reason.
Well, one of my friends had told me, Deb, what you didn't put, which you should have put, is, man, she rocked it. 10 years later, she rocked it. And, I didn't put that in the book, but I do want, your audience to understand that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can dance with Jake again and have a lot of fun. Jake and I dance.
Yeah, we have a great time too.
Yes.
We're fun people,
Yeah,
aside from this conversation, she and I know how to have a great time. It's wonderful. So may I ask you something?
Yeah, keep on asking. I'm happy.
Do you still dream about him?
No, it hasn't been for a long while that he showed up in my dreams. A long while. And there was a time when I said, why? But I've also come to terms with that, I think he's busy. I think he's very active, busy. And I have things to do here, and he's wants me to do those things. So, yeah.
You talk about how you dreamed of him, and how that helped you come to so much peace. But what I really loved was how you talk about, I believe it was Christian, or was it Michael, your son, talking about how he could program his dreams to see his father.
Yes.
Wow.
That was Michael.
That was Michael? So when he first told you that, what did you think?
Michael has always had a very strong will. And so it didn't surprise me at all. that he could do that. But it's, you know, even though my sons, I have to say, I'm very excited where they are after all these years. I never thought that the light at the end of the tunnel could look this phenomenal. I recognize that at one point or another, they probably need to go through some therapy. They have, and they will continue to miss their dad in ways that I don't anymore. Um, that's just a reality. And as they hit their milestones in life, they will revisit this loss again. I do it, but it's not so frequent because I'm older, but they've got more of a horizon ahead of them. So they've got more milestones that they're going to hit.
It's incredible how this is a legacy. Like this is really is a love story, but it's not just about you and Randy. It is about your family and how you start to love yourself. It's so well done, and congratulations on making such a beautiful contribution to our world.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I promise everybody this is just a 45-minute conversation, so I'm going to stop it here as far as what, if you wanted to come in, that's great. However, I also want to give you guys the opportunity to ask Debbie questions, because the whole point of her book is to spark conversation. So if you would like to stay and have a conversation, please come join the Zoom link so we can keep it private. But if you do want, Debbie, I have the Amazon link for your book I placed on there. Is there a different link you'd like me to share?
No, that's good.
Okay. Well, Debbie's book is Beyond the Breakpoint, and it is absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys get the chance to read this and share it with you. You do want to share it with people. It is you do want to share. Yes. It really is. Terry's going to be on. Terry's also a fantastic author. We're going to have him on in a couple of weeks. So he says, thank you so much, Debbie. Karen, my girlfriend asked us on social media. She is a therapist who deals with addiction. She says, have you marketed this book to addiction programs and mental health clinics?
No, and I would really appreciate some help on that. I don't know how to do that.
Hey, we can make the connection. Here you go.
I will meet someone next week that runs a few things like that, and that's my first conversation that I'll have. But I welcome the help, because I really want to help people, you know, in this capacity.
So I'm going to stop the live stream here. Thank you so much for watching. If you do want to see more, we are going to have another interview next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Come and join the conversation as we talk about struggling through success, not giving up, and keep pushing forward, because normal was not good enough. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to continue the conversation with Debbie on Zoom. You guys have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye. So now that we have, gotten, this is more of a safe space here. I just don't feel like it's always appropriate to share everyone's personal dirty laundry on social media. I mean, come on, what am I, Kim Kardashian? But we do want to have a conversation here. So you have some amazing people that I adore who are here joining us on our call tonight, who have all dealt. Oh, Susan, you're going to kill me. I'm going to go back to the speaker view because good. I want you guys to actually have a moment to actually share and speak about what you're feeling right now.
Me?
Susan, you look like you've got so much you want to share.
I'd love to read your book. It sounds like we think a lot the same. I come from similar beliefs about just pushing through and not giving up. Been through my own hell, since I'm a little kid. But there is one thing I wanted to comment about, or something you made me think of when you mentioned your kids getting therapy and how difficult this might be for them. I don't know how old they were when they lost their father. I was 6, and my father died very suddenly. it affected my entire life. You know, it's been a part of who I am my whole life. And that's because, you know, he was my father, not my spouse. As an adult, we process these feelings very differently than when we did as kids. The fact that you are there with this attitude that, you know, you'll fall down, you're going to get right back up, and you're very spiritual, and you recognize what's important, and you're very devoted to their well-being. You've already given them what they need to be able to process their feelings as they grow. But it is likely going to take them a lifetime to process all of the feelings.
Yes.
Especially if they were very young.
They were 10, 8, and 2.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's
So
young.
it was hard.
So the fact that you are the person who you are is their saving grace. They'll process it their own way in their own time, but they'll stay upright because they saw your example. And I am a very firm believer in that. That's all my own story. From childhood and up to this present moment, dealing with my children and their issues. So I congratulate you.
Thank you. They are in a very good place. They're phenomenal kids, and they're going to college. Really great outcome, I'll say, considering. You know, it could have been much worse in terms of, it could have, just a lot of things could have happened, and it's really good. That's why my girlfriend said, Deb, you need to say that you rocked it as a mom, right? I'm just going to move this because I think my battery's at this point. But I think one of the mistakes that I might have made is I was very strong, and let's just say I pity their wives. Because
you have set a high bar.
They're going to be out for a big surprise. You know, I'm saying, the other day, I just keep on telling them, I know you think I am superhuman, but this is not normal for someone to be able to do these things at the same time, or to, you know.
It really isn't. I mean, seriously, you get this book and I'm like, damn, people think I have a lot. And I'm going, this right, dear, whatever rice that your Hakka family was magically eating back for generations. I mean, it's got like, it's Jack and the Beanstalk has nothing on what you've got through here. It's amazing. It's just, it was so, and it's in so when you guys read this, by the way, it's in the very beginning that she just like smacks you with like, boom, like, it's like, it's the first chapter. I thought, this is not very big. I can get through this, no problem. I only had a couple of weeks before the interview, sure, whatever. And I had to stop. I was like, boom, I'm on page 18 and I have to put this down for a minute. It was like processing overload. OMGG. It was nuts. That stands for, oh my good God. Okay, just so you understand where we're going with that one. So OMGG. But wow, it's wonderful. So what type of, that's actually interesting. What type of woman do you think your sons are going to actually be drawn to because of all this?
I don't know.
Or men, because we don't judge, we don't know.
No, I have no idea. I'm waiting with bated breath, and I'll be there for that poor girl. Because, you know, this experience, losing their father, will mark them. You know, they haven't seen a normal unit. They've seen a mom that's been doing more than her fair share, and their expectations, whether they want it or not, are going to be that, you know, that women can do all of these things. So I think it's going to be an unfair burden on my future daughter-in-laws. God love them. But, well, it is what it is. So,
I know Dustin Lynn would love to say something, but she's having difficulty with her audio, but she would be, I know she's got so many things she'd like to say. So Dusty, if you want to log out and log back in, I will hold your spot, but I'm so glad you're here. Kim, how are you doing this evening? I don't know if she can actually speak. Here, I'm just throwing her on the spot, but yeah.
is that Kim Hill, my friend?
Yes, it is.
Oh, hey.
Hey, Debbie.
Are you in Richmond already?
Huh? No, I'm still here in Boca.
Oh, so good to hear your sweet voice.
You too. I'm just being a little fly on the wall.
Kim, did you know Debbie when she was going through all of this?
I didn't know her well when Randy died. And then our kids, her middle and my oldest are the same age. And we're in the same class through St. Paul. And so we got to know each other through all the various functions and fundraisers and this and that. And yeah, I think Randy's funeral I was there for that. But I kind of got to know her more over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, it was afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you've only ever known Debbie, not Debbie and Randy.
Correct. I never did meet Randy.
Would you say you've seen her growth? I mean, you've experienced it, you've watched it. I don't know whether you acknowledged it. We all grow, right? Especially as life goes on. But how would you describe her growth?
Hello. She's remarkable. I didn't, obviously I knew she went through something, but I didn't know, to the extent, and to be honest, I haven't gotten to read your book yet. I've just been a little nuts. I just moved and here locally.
Okay.
And the permit process and all the things, I've just been a little bit slammed lately, but yeah, but I'll order it today. So yeah,
It's fantastic.
wish her nothing but the best, of course.
So Debbie, do you have anything you'd like to say you'd like to share on our parting words here?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Jake, for the joy that you bring into my life. I am so glad that we've connected, we've met, and our paths have crossed. I wanted to tell everybody that, nothing really happens by accident. People come into your life and they're there to bless you or to, teach you a lesson. But nothing is really by accident. And I have been very blessed, mostly. More blessings than lessons is all I'll say. Although I do like your lessons, your dance lessons, Jake.
Yeah, but my lessons are fun. Yeah. I teach people how to be pretty. It's a great time. I love what I do when I do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to dance again. It's been
It's
way
been
too long.
It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just a journey is what I like to tell people. Sometimes something right now can look like it's the worst thing in the world. And you'll look at it 2-3 years from now and say, wow, that was a good thing that happened to me because I got this and this out of that. And then it can be a bad thing again. And it's a zigzag. But as long as you're growing as a person, then it's all good.
It's so funny. People always talk about growth like it's this wonderful thing that you're going to grow so much from this. Growth sucks. Does no one else remember puberty? It is uncomfortable. Like things just hurt for no random reason. It's like you are embarrassed around people for God knows why. It's not comfortable.
Maybe growth is not the right word.
No, it's exactly the word. It's very true as well, but it's necessary.
Let's just call it evolution. As long as you continue evolving as a human spiritual being, then it's all good. Whatever comes your way.
So Debbie, I just wanted to say hi really quick and just share on your last sentiment because I'm on the other side of addiction and I can really relate to your anecdotes on death and the beauty of it from a recent death in my family. But most of all on growth, the thing that I never thought was going to happen to me is like Jake is talking about growth and all that. is that I now look at, these burdens, or what I thought were burdens, as like potential opportunities for growth. It's just an amazing thing how now, living through certain things, I get to share that with other people. So hopefully they don't give up. So I'm so happy and proud of you that like you gave that window, because people in your situation may give up, right? Because it's so easy to. I know from addiction that there were many times when I thought I was going to die. And it was only one individual that told me, I believe you could be happy. And it was only by him telling me that was I able to get through it. And the fact that you got through it alone, well, I think with the universe, the higher power and all that, people need to know that. And I applaud you for it. I think it's beautiful. I can't wait. I hang out with Jacob a lot, but I can't wait to meet you and dance with you. So I'll have more to share. I took so many notes. I read meditatively, so I'm so excited to read your book. So I'm thrilled. Thanks for letting me both be part of this, Jake.
No, it's my pleasure. The one thing that I would like to, Jake, leave your audience, everybody with, because it's a big part, is I do not believe I could have come out on the other side of this experience in the way that I have, had it not been for my relationship with God. That was pivotal, crucial, indispensable, because at the various points of that journey when I was seriously emotionally and physically depleted, he was there for me. So I know what that feels like. I know what it feels to be carried, for little things to happen, to know that he's got my back. And that's truly at the end what I would want the audience to walk away with. Not only can you get through and see the light and whatnot, but it's, explore your relationship with God, because mine is a testimony of what that relationship can do in your life. So
It's been quite a year with 2020. I think I spoke to you a little bit about it, but I did some hypnotherapy to try to do like a hypnosis regression to change some foundational memories that we all carry, right? And it was a huge stepping point for me. And one of the things I wanted to work on was my relationship with God, because I was raised to be a pastor. I mean, can you see it?
Well, I do see your command of a congregation.
Oh, honey, had I actually gone through with it, I'd have people dancing with snakes. It'd be fine.
Yeah.
It would have been a wonderful job opportunity for me had I really wanted the Kool-Aid, but I decided dancing was a little bit more fun, so we went that route. However, when my parents kicked me out and they said, they said some things to me and made me think that God didn't love me. I didn't want to believe it, but something actually took root, and it's taken 18 years to move past that. So coming through it this year, having the hypnotherapy and having it address my relationship with God has been absolutely transformative, and it giving myself permission to have my own relationship, my own terms, and to feel the love that I know I deserve. And so I agree with you. It makes you more human when you recognize your own divinity through your relationship with God. And thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to say?
Can I just say that the growth is in the hard? Everything happens for a reason and in its time, and it might seem insurmountable at that moment, but that's where the growth is.
Mm-hmm.
When it's hard and we just don't quit.
Mm.
You have two choices. You can stay in misery or you can come out on the other end. Those are your two choices. So pick one, commit to it, and let's get on with it.
Power through it.
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie's words. Yeah. By the way, next week Susan is our guest.
No, the following.
The following week, whichever it is.
Well,
Well, I don't know, you got what? She just
Not
freaked out.
prepared yet
She just freaked out for that. Okay, gotcha, girl. So
Oh,
yeah, we're gonna
what a
get you. Don't
story
worry.
I got. That's tell my
Which
whole
is so
story,
fun.
though, right? We're just focusing on that one issue, right?
Mhm. The whole point of these calls is to get people to have conversations that need to be held in a safe environment. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't always have to be. It's not always sad either. Like last week's was actually quite funny, but this is only the second one I've been hosting, and I'm trying it at this time frame to see if more people would want to join in. We had a lot of people watching on Facebook, surprisingly.
How many?
Throughout on and off, we had 8 on and off. It kept going up and down. So new people. The thing now that they've changed Facebook, you can't tell who was there. So I don't know who it was. But we had a lot of my girlfriend, who is a psychologist for addiction, was the one that was commenting like crazy on it, and she would like to help you get your book into clinics. So
Ooh, I would love
yeah.
that. I definitely, let's connect, or can you connect us?
Of course I will. Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
hopping
I
off.
should
Good
do
night
right
to
now.
everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. And Debbie, may peace be with you, you know?
Likewise.
You're
Thank you,
awesome.
Susan.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Thank
Hey,
you all so
Patrick, I
much.
heard a lot about you and I can't wait to meet you.
Bye, Kim.
Bye.
Are you in Boca?
This is, yes, still in Boca.
Okay, well, we must get together.
Better hurry. I'm only here for a year.
Don't worry. As soon as I get back, well, I'll shoot you a text.